Welcome everybody to Catfish Weekly, episode 103, presented by Whisker Wear Apparel, along with Chuck Davison. I'm Lyle Stokes, and welcome to the show. Chuck, did you get any of that bad weather over the weekend?
It was really cold. We had a few snow flurries on Friday. Just enough for everybody to get stupid and buy up all the milk and bread, but nothing ever accumulated anywhere.
Now, when you say really cold, what are you talking about?
Uh, when I talk really cold, it stays cold day and night. It stays around freezing. That's really cold to me. You know, uh, I don't mind winter days to where it gets up in the 30s and back down into the 20s or something like that because it does warm up a little bit. But the pressure system that come through, it pretty much for a few days there it stayed in the 30s for the highs. So it took a lot to warm up the bones.
I know Bobby Vargas posted a few minutes ago in our chat that they had around 40 inches of snow out there. I'm glad that he's enjoying that. We don't need any of it in Missouri. We usually get it, and this time it missed us. We're happy about that. Jerry Dillard says in Texas today it was 75 degrees. Boy, that's tough sledding right there.
It is. You can't make no snowballs in that weather.
No, Justin Connor says they got 17 inches. That's still more than enough for anybody. We're pretty fortunate. We've had some really good people on our show, and tonight we are fortunate enough to have Zakk Royce join us for the show. Welcome, Zakk.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
For the people that don't know, Zakk caught 2 state record fish in a 24-hour period. One of them, I believe, was 92, and one of them 105. Is that right, Zakk?
Yes, sir. 91 and 105.
Now that's outstanding. To break a state record any time is quite a feat in itself, but to do it twice in 24 hours, I mean, the catfish gods was smiling on you that day for sure.
Yes, no doubt about it.
Well, I'm quite sure we've got a pretty good bunch of people in the chat tonight, and I know that Chuck is sitting there with just a whole bunch of questions for you, so we'll get started and let him take off with that. And as they come in over the chat line, we'll try to get them to you as quickly as we can. So you guys, when you write them questions, don't get excited for a few minutes getting to you, but we're gonna get to them just as quickly as we can. Chuck, are you ready to go with Zakk?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
All right, dude.
Hey Zakk. I just want you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you're from, where you live. Tell us a little bit about your guide service, and what got you into catfishing, and what made you decide to make it a full-time career.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Murfreesboro, North Carolina. It's about an hour away from Lake Gaston. And what got me into catfishing was basically my father started taking me at a young age. It started, we were just on the bank. We didn't have a boat or anything. Nothing fancy, no fancy gear. And we honestly had no clue what we were doing. My dad grew up as a bass fisherman. So, we did a lot of bass fishing before we started catfishing. So it was a whole new thing to us. We started out, on the bank with night crawlers catching channel cats. Even use a little bit of, the classic stink bait out of the jar. So it was just a learning process. Started out on the bank and did a lot of reading and researching, and just, started evolving that way using cut bait and whatnot. Started catching slightly better fish, and then when I was about 15, about 10 years ago, my dad, he got a nice little aluminum catfishing boat, and we started fishing out of that. That was kind of when things got really serious as far as actually going out and putting a whole lot of time in and learning the water and chasing after those blue cats. Previously, we'd been catching a lot of channel cats and small blue cats, 5 to 10 pounds. But once we got out there on a boat and could really um, move around and fish different areas and kind of track the different seasonal patterns, we started doing a lot better. And ever since then, it just slowly took off, and it got to the point, when I got old enough to drive on my own and get my own boat. I couldn't stay off the water, man. I was out there every chance I got. When I was in high school, I was out there. Every time I wasn't in school, I was on the water, and it was a great thing. I feel like it's a great thing for young people to do to keep them, on the right track and out of trouble. Um, but it's become an addiction for me. And in the last few years, I'm out there anywhere from 24 to 72 hours straight on an average trip without going home. Being that's a little bit of a drive for me, it's not really practical for me to drive out there and fish 8 hours and come home. So I'm usually out there for a long period of time, and I feel like that really helps, stay on top of the fish as well, and just really learn a lot doing fishing that way, being out there so much and trying different things and having time to try new places.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about the regulations y'all have out in North Carolina and um, on the blue cats and the other catfish.
Well, unfortunately, on Lake Gaston, there's not really uh, any regulations on blue catfish or channel catfish or flathead catfish. Um, so, it's really unfortunate, but in other parts of the state, there are things starting to come into place. I'm not too familiar with exactly what the regulations are, in the western part of the state, but I do know there are some regulations coming into play on the blue catfish, and I believe it's somewhat similar to Virginia's rule as far as one fish over 32 inches per day. Um, so I'm hoping that continues to grow, and it maybe in the future the whole state will have regulations on the catfish, and we can try to preserve what we have.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was reading up on it, and Lake Norman and Baden, one blue cat over 32. Uh, you're the future of the sport out there. You're going to be one of the so-called mentors that people's going to be looking up to, and they're going to be following you big time. And you're setting the example. You're setting the stage for these guys that are coming up behind you and with you. Um, do you see you starting to get involved on trying to get some regulations going on Gadsden and some of the other lakes in North Carolina, and trying to get North Carolina on track with the other states that have these regulations that are getting their lakes a lot of attention and a lot of tourists coming in?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been in contact now for about 2 years, with state biologists and officials, just trying to get my point across to them, and let them know there's a lot of anglers that feel the same way as me as far as the regulations go. Um, the thing is, everybody just got to work together, and if enough people voice their opinions, then I do think that it'll keep making progress. Just as it has in the other part of the state. Baden and Norman, as you were saying, with the regulations coming into play there. I think things are definitely improving for the catfishing community and for trophy catfishing as far as recognition goes about um, having regulations for the trophy fish.
Yeah, I may be wrong, but the two trophies that you did land, I know you've probably had some that big actually on and get off, or had them on for a little while, and you actually knew what was in that lake. Um, do you see after setting the record on Gadsden, and more or less letting the cat out of the bag? Are you kind of worried about people coming onto the lake now and actually starting to catch these big fish and take them home and stuff like that?
A little bit. I've definitely seen a slight increase in um, catfishing types of boats out there since I've caught the two fish. This time of year is kind of hard to judge it. Of course, a lot of people just aren't going to go out in the really cold weather. So I'm sure when things warm up a little bit, there'll be a huge increase in pressure, from people coming out and targeting those catfish. And definitely don't have any problem with that. It's just it would be a shame if people come out and take the fish, and don't put them back. Um, it's those trophy fish. When you take one trophy fish, you're not just killing that one particular fish. You're really having, putting a negative impact on the whole population, with those being, the main breeders and having the genes to really help the trophy population. There's so many smaller fish to keep. I can't understand why people do keep the trophies to eat or whatever else they do with them. My opinion is, keep the 5 to 10 pounders and let the trophies swim and keep the population going strong. So I hope that attitude will kind of catch on with more anglers. It seems to be, it is definitely getting better from what I've seen. So I can only hope for the best on that as far as Lake Gaston goes. I know Kerr Lake, for example, has had a lot of pressure since the world record was caught. There's been a lot of fish over 100 pounds taken out of there. And it's just really a shame, in my opinion.
Yeah. Do y'all have so-called pay lakes in North Carolina? The ones where commercial fishermen sell or go out and catch trophy cats, put them in small ponds, and charge people to come catch them.
I don't know of any pay lakes personally in North Carolina. I'm sure there are some, but I haven't come across any. I haven't seen any in North Carolina. I know they're a big thing in a lot of other places, and there may be in other parts of North Carolina, other parts of the state, but in this area, I just haven't really heard too much of them. But I know that's a threat for a lot of public bodies of water. Pay lakes, are taking fish from the public bodies of water and putting them in these pay lakes.
Yeah, that's it's real sad that the kind of education that people's received on this, and people that go to these pay lakes and actually catch a large fish, and call it their personal best. How can you call a fish your personal best when it's already been caught? Um, you wasn't the one that caught that fish. Somebody caught it with a net, a hoop net, or something, and it was probably caught by a trophy catfish sportsman before that, and was actually released. So, um, these people who go out and catch these fish and bring them and put them in these small ponds to live a few months, be caught a few times, and end up dying and being used for a gambling piece and stuff. That's really sad part of the catfishing environment that is trying to get a big hold of right now. And I'm glad that you don't see a lot of that in your parts of the country or in your state, because that right there can really affect large bodies of water. And by you catching those two fish and the wrong people seeing it, um, it don't matter what body of water you're in. When these guys learn how to catch these fish, they know how to target trenches, deep water ledges, which these fish use for their highways. And all you got to do is set the right netting systems up, and you can really do some damage quick on these lakes.
That's right. It's a lot different than even a rod and reel angler going out and catching a few large fish and taking them home. That's bad enough in my opinion. But these guys with the big nets and everything and the commercial gear, they can really wipe out a whole population of trophy fish in no time.
Yeah, when you caught the first trophy and posted it that you did a preliminary weight on it. You was having problems getting the conservation officers out for weight, and you was going to keep it alive, do everything you could overnight until they got there the next day. Do you mind walking through with us everything you had to go to care for that fish to have a successful weight and release on it?
Sure. Um, the first problem was being that I fished out of a Carolina skiff. I didn't have an actual live well that would fit a fish of that size in it. Um, so what I had to do was I had to call first. Who came out was Caleb Page. He brought his Excel catfishing boat, and it has the large live well across the back. Until he got there, I kept the fish in the water inside the hoop of the landing net. Um, so that way, the fish had fresh water the whole time, and I didn't have to worry about it. And with it being, cooler out and the cooler water temperatures, that helped a lot as well. So I kept the fish in the water um, the whole time, beside the boat at the boat dock. And Caleb showed up with his boat, and then while transporting it to his live well, we got a weight on it, in the hoop of the net. We weighed it, and then we put it in his live well, and he, pumped fresh water in and kept it circulating until Zakk Zajac could come with his portable tournament live well. Um, and once Zakk Zajac got there, we put the portable live well on my boat, and it's more than enough for a 90, 100-pound catfish. There was no problem fitting the fish in there safely. So then we took the fish from Caleb's boat and put it in the portable live well on my boat that Zakk Zajac had brought. And that was the most tedious part of the whole thing, was the fact that live well, the portable live well, doesn't have a constant circulation on it. So I had to actually pump fresh water, in and then pump water out at least every hour, just to be on the safe side and make sure that fish had fresh oxygen and everything. So it was a long night. My father, I had called him, and he was over there in a matter of a half hour or so to help me out. And we kind of took turns going out and pumping water in to keep the fish, alive and kicking. It ended up being the next day, being I caught it on a Sunday, it ended up being Monday morning before we could actually get to a certified scale and have a North Carolina biologist come out to certify the fish. So the next morning, I got up with the biologist, and we found a place that had certified propane scales about 5 miles from the boat ramp. So luckily we didn't have to go too far, and we met up with the biologist and had everything certified, and then returned to the boat ramp to go back out and release the fish. As I said, we had to pump water about every hour into that tank. So it was kind of a job, doing that, and it was really stressful most of all, because the last thing I wanted was that fish to end up, being unhealthy or anything like that. That was my main priority, was keeping that fish alive and kicking.
Yeah, you was ready to release him at any time if you felt like you needed to revive him and go ahead and let him go.
That's right. And I really wanted to get it certified, of course. I mean, who wouldn't? But uh, if it had seemed like there was no way I could do it, then the fish would have swam, and swam away, and I just would have had to live with that. I'm not going to kill the fish, so whatever happened would have happened, is the way I was looking at it.
True
Yeah.
sportsman right there, folks. True
Yes.
sportsman.
Yeah. You really, you set the example there. maybe a lot of guys will take this and do the exact same thing, even though, I mean, I see how much stuff I end up in the bottom of my live well after a tournament with some 40s and 50s in it. Um, and me and Lyle both have actually had probably 3 or 4 pounds of poop all over us, trying to get a picture. Um, so these fish do lose a lot of weight from the time you catch them till the end of the tournament or whatever. Uh, when you took the weight when Caleb got there, what was the most that you think that fish had ever weighed? Before the 91-pound certification weight.
Well, the scale that he was using, he had it tested against some scales that are certified, so we're pretty much positive that his scales were dead on. And when we weighed the fish before putting it in his live well, it was 94 pounds. So I think it is quite possible the fish did lose 3 pounds overnight. That's kind of what I expected, that it would lose 2 or 3 pounds. And sitting overnight is going to regurgitate and whatnot. So that
Yeah,
definitely makes sense.
yeah, and they're probably gonna bring water through their gills, and get it in their stomach and their swim bladder or whatever for their urinal tract. Because I've actually got fish out at the tournament, carried it from the boat to the scale, and it peed the whole time. And then when I got it out to carry it, we had a big swimming pool set up at Cabela's, and it peed all the way to the swimming pool. So, no telling how much more it finished doing, but, all that counts when you're getting that weight for that record. But, I mean, you did a great job, and, um, you know, and by you doing such a great job, I think somebody was taking care of you and said, "Hey, this guy right here deserves something much greater." And tell us about what happened later on that day that was much greater.
Well, upon going out to release the first fish, we released it, in the area that I originally caught it because I just felt like that was the best thing for the fish. And, maybe I sound a little bit silly, but I figured, hey, the fish came from that area, so it'll feel more familiar going back in that area. Uh,
Correctly, a lot less stress.
that's right. And with a fish of that size, um, you know, every little bit of stress that you can save it, the better, the way I look at it.
Yes.
So, we took it back out and released it, in the original area where I landed it. And I told my father, we have fresh bait, we have the rods on the boat. Why not drift a little more? Why not do a little more fishing? Of course, we didn't expect anything, crazy to happen. But we did start fishing more after releasing the fish. And it wasn't long after releasing the fish and starting to fish again that, my rod just bent over, tremendously to the point where I knew it was another big fish. But of course, I didn't expect it to be what it ended up being. I grabbed the rod, and it was, just as I was hung up, it felt like I couldn't even move it. It felt like I was hung. Um, After I gave a couple of yanks, as I would to kind of bounce off a rock or a stump or something, the fish yanked back on me to let me know who was in charge. And at that point, I realized, just how big of a fish I had on. And the first thing that crossed my mind was, there's no way this is happening. This fish felt bigger than the one I had just released, but I couldn't believe it. I didn't know what to think, to be honest. It was a great fight. I didn't get the whole thing on video. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the video of both the fish, and I did not have my camera going when I first started fighting the fish. And luckily, my dad remembered that I didn't have it on and started it after I'd already had the fish on about 10 minutes. Um, so what people see in that video is 10 minutes into the fight, basically. But the fish pulled a lot of drag off. It didn't do the traditional run down to the bottom and just kind of sit and up and down vertical type of fight. This fish ran out. At one point, I actually thought it was going to spool me, being that I was using a Abu 6500 with 30-pound line. You know, that cuts down on the line capacity, having that diameter of mono on that smaller reel. So it made a long run, and at one point, I actually told my dad, I said, we might have to chase it with the trolling motor. Um, but luckily it stopped, it slowed down. Um, you know, got it to the boat 2 or 3 times before actually having a chance to get it in the net. And then once we finally did get it close enough to get in the net, the problem was it just wouldn't fit in the net that I had. So, you know, my dad did the best he could and managed to get the head of the fish in, but the rest of it was hanging out. And, you know, as people probably saw in the video, I, of course, was screaming and kind of freaking out. I was just so nervous, you know, that this fish would get away. But we managed to get it in the boat, and literally as soon as the net, you know, got into the boat with the fish, the hook popped out. So it was a close call. You know, I've lost a lot of really good fish at the boat before, and that's why I was so nervous about it. But somebody was definitely looking down on me and looking out for me on this one. Everything was just meant to be, I guess, and you know, it ended up we being that it was a Monday and I had just got the other one certified. I had the number for the biologist still, and it was no tough obstacle getting this one certified. The fish was in the live well a total of an hour or so before coming back to the lake to be released. So that was a good thing too. It was a lot easier process with this second one. Being that I only had 100-pound scales on my boat, uh, I didn't know what to really think about the size of the fish. You know, I weighed it on my spring scales and it maxed them out. As I said, 100 pounds. But looking at the fish, it looked so much bigger than the previous fish I had landed that I didn't know if it was 120 or 130 pounds. But I knew it was definitely another record. So went ahead and got everything certified, and it came out to 105 pounds on certified scales. And of course, was released to grow bigger, you know, hopefully into a world record.
How long did it take for the conservation officer to get there, and did y'all go through the same process, going to the propane place and all that again as you did with the first fish?
Yeah, it was the same place and the same North Carolina biologist, but this time it only took them, you know, 30 minutes or so to meet us at the scale. So,
What did he say when he got there? Y'all pulling my leg, or what he saying?
well, I called him first. I called him as soon as we landed the fish and got it in the live well. And I told him, I said, you know, I've got another fish in the boat, and I'm positive that it's a new state record. And he said, are you serious? Or, you know, you're not joking, are you? And I said, no, sir, I wouldn't joke about this. I'm positive this fish is over 100 pounds. He said, well, I haven't gotten home yet, but I'll go ahead and turn around and meet you at the place. And we went ahead and headed there.
Oh man, that's priceless. Yeah, you know, you was posting some really awesome photos, you know, and supporting your sponsors, you know, showing off the equipment you was using to catch the fish and everything. And you know, I'm always thinking ahead, so I'm building my story for the show already. And so I sent Caleb a text, and I said, Caleb, how you gonna handle this? I said, I don't know if y'all consider Zakk a pro staff or not, but you know, a lot of places will say their pro staff, you know, aren't going to be eligible for the bonuses or you know anything like that. And he said, sure enough, he said Zack's going to be just like anybody else. He's going to get this. he's gonna get this money. I said 10 grand. He goes, no, 15. He was wearing the shirt. I said, well, I didn't know about the other 5 now. So, I mean, that's mighty awesome, that, your sponsor did that because, a lot of other companies, they would have said, all right, Mr. Pro Staff, you did the company right, and a lot of places put stuff like that, when you sign with them that, you're not going to be eligible for the stuff that, the promotions are going for. So, you know, uh, Caleb and them, they did really good about going through with their commitment. And, I don't really know if you was exactly pro staff for them, but you really do a hell of a job, promoting their product and everything. So you dang well deserved every penny of it.
I appreciate it. And those guys definitely, they've been really good to me, and I really appreciate what they've done for sure.
It shouldn't matter if you are a member of a company's pro staff or if you are just a average old guy going out that happens to hit a lick. When there is money offered to guys using a product, whether it be in a tournament or a record situation or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. If they are using that product and they hit that record or they win a tournament, they should be eligible no matter what to whatever is offered to them, because anybody that's out there has the same opportunity to hit those fish. So it doesn't matter who you're fishing for or whose side you're on. If you hit that lick, you've hit the lick. You've earned whatever's being offered out there and offered up. And I think it's outstanding to have that potential in our industry right now.
Oh yeah, and when Mustad had that promotion out about the I don't know if it was state world record or whatever, and their fine print actually said the pro staff was not you know able to be included in that promotion.
Yeah, that's not fair.
No, it's not. And all they said is as long as you have the hooks in the boat. So I'm sure Mustad gives their pro staff as many hooks as they need, because I've seen some guys in our industry that have hook sponsors, and I mean they're just pulling out goodie bags full of them, throwing them out to at tournaments so people can try them out. So these guys are going to have the hooks in the boat, but I think it's totally fair for anybody to be eligible for any of these contests that is given, if they're pro staff or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve Douglas offers some stuff like that at tournaments with his rod holders, and that's a really good deal. And it wouldn't matter if it was him or if it was another company. That just happened to come to my mind. But if that is the thing that's going to make our sport grow, if Drift Masters gets involved with that, or Jesse, or whoever it is. It doesn't matter. If it's the guys that make the little plastic ones that the boys up north use for channel cat fishing, if you have one of them on there and you win a tournament and they are throwing up money for having them on your boat when you win that tournament, that's good for the sport. All that stuff is what separated catfishing for many years from bass fishing and crappie fishing and things like that. And now people are starting to know to get involved, to make this the sport that we all want, that you're going to have to step up and do some of that stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay, so you ready for the world record now? And where do you think you're going to have to go to get it? Do you think she's laying in the bottom of Gadsden, or do you think you're going to have to venture off somewhere else around the state or right out of the state to get her?
Well, I think that Gaston definitely has a good chance of having a 150-pound class fish in it. But I do have to say, if I was, targeting a world record size fish, I think it would be kind of hard to beat Kerr Lake. I think there's a lot of fish in there, in that size range still.
Do you get the opportunity to go fish Kerr pretty often?
I don't get to as much as I'd like to, but I do fish it occasionally, and it's a great body of water for sure. Gaston just hasn't had blue cats in it as long as Kerr, and it's not as big a body of water either. But I do think it's catching up and definitely has a lot of potential.
The tactics that you use on Gadsden and that you practice so well on, and uh, you know get your techniques down to a science. When you go up to Kerr and you're using those, the one you use with the float, your float rig and your three-way rig and all that. Do you use the exact same techniques when you get up to Kerr as you do on Gadsden?
Yes, so far when I've fished Kerr, I pretty much fish the same way that I do on Gaston.
Yeah, I mean that's I try to do the exact same thing, because that's your comfort zone.
That's right.
Um,
A lot of
yeah,
it, it's definitely got a lot to do with what you're comfortable doing, and you know, um, techniques and rigs that you've had a lot of success with. You're gonna have so much more confidence in them that naturally, you're just gonna do better with them, no matter where you're fishing, in my opinion.
do you get on over to the James River and get on it a pretty good bit?
I honestly haven't fished the James very much. Um, you know, I'd say on average 2 or 3 times a year. I'll go out there and make a 2 or 3 day trip out of it. But that's somewhere where I've been planning to try to fish a little bit more whenever I get a chance.
Okay. Well, I think I've used up about enough of the show's time. I've got about a million other things to pick your brain at, and I'm sure we'll be able to get you on again. But I'm going to pass you on over to Lyle, and I'm sure he's got a lot of stuff to go over with you. And it was great interviewing you, man. And you're a great asset to the sport and a great sportsman, and your company is going to go really far. You've got a great attitude. Just keep doing what you're doing, and don't change a thing.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me.
Well, Zakk, before we get started, Rob Clodfelder is in chat. And, Rob, I know that you're watching, and I know that you're looking, and I know you know what them are, buddy. Yeah. Yeah, I got them, and they're fresh right out of the oven, too. Yes, sirree. Zakk, we have a couple of questions that are in chat. And Catpool wants to know, how broad of an area do you fish in your zone out there when you're guiding?
Okay. Let me get the charger plugged up here on my computer. My laptop's about to die. Then I'll answer that question.
Okay.
I apologize.
Chuck, are you ready to get back out and get into some good fish?
Oh man, I'm ready, man.
Me too. I can't wait.
I mean, right now I'm in such a dilemma trying to figure out which direction I want to go with electronics, and I know how much money I got. I know, do I want to use it all on this?
Whoa! You got money,
man? I mean,
you got money?
I've been saving it for a long time just for this. I'm the type of person, when I buy something, I get my money's worth out of it, and I've had this 898 since 2010, and it wasn't slow when I bought it, but I don't know, it's just after it gets so old, just like a computer, it just starts acting more sluggish, and I hold down on the power button and it don't want to power off. And
all them waypoints you got saved, man.
I just can't wait to get me another one so I can throw this sucker in the trash, because I can't sell it and let nobody get my waypoints.
I hear you. Okay, Zakk, you all plugged up?
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
That's all right, no problem.
All right, you said the question was how broad of an area?
Yeah, how broad of an area do you fish?
Well, does it mean, in general or at a particular time?
I'm guessing guiding.
Okay. Well, I mostly fish from the midpoint of Lake Gaston down to the dam, which is about a 10-mile area altogether. Um, as far as when I go out and start on one particular day, the way I do things normally, I do a lot of trolling and drifting, so I'll kind of pick an area before I even get out there, and I'll stick to that plan. I won't really worry too much about what I'm seeing on my electronics on that particular day. If I'm going out on a guide trip to have customers on the boat, I've been pre-fishing and I've got a decent idea of what's going on. So I just go out and say I'm going to drift a creek. I'll start at the mouth of the creek or in the back of the creek, depending on if there's wind blowing in or out. And I'll just, kind of zigzag into or out of that creek, covering as much structure as I possibly can. And as I said, I won't really worry about what I see on my electronics at that particular time. I'll just go ahead with my original plan and cover as much water as possible. I believe that just covering as much water as you can with fresh bait and getting kind of a nice scent trail going off the baits really is the way to go when fishing a lake that doesn't have much current.
Okay. Greg wanted to know what kind of boat you have, and Tony said you had a 21-foot DLV. Would you explain what that is to us, please?
Sure. Yeah, I've got a 2015 Carolina skiff. It is the 218 DLV model, which is the 21-foot, and it's got a semi-V hole on it. So, compared to the traditional skiffs with the complete flat bottom, it does ride a little better in rougher water. It just kind of cuts through those waves a little better and makes for a better ride. And it's a great catfishing boat. The only thing I would change is, like I was talking about earlier, it doesn't have a catfish live well on it. It doesn't have a live well of any size, really. So that's the only thing about it is, you kind of need either a portable live well or you need to have some kind of custom live well built into it if you plan on keeping those large catfish alive in tournaments or anything else.
Right. Realistically, Zakk, that there is a multitude of great boats on the market, and that probably is the biggest problem with tournament catfishing guys is so many of the boats that they like or want or feel like they need does not have a live well big enough for 5 fish or even 3 fish, which I'm a big proponent of the 3 fish limit on tournaments. But even in our area when we fish St. Louis, like I say, it's nothing for 125 to 200 pounds of fish on a 3 fish limit. If you got 5 fish in there, there's very few live wells that could substantially hold them for 8 hours, and that's the biggest downfall with most tournament boats.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It's it's definitely the biggest obstacle in tournament catfishing and whatnot. And when picking a boat is just trying to find one that's most suitable for keeping those trophy fish alive and not having any complications.
Right. What kind of electronics do you run on your boat, Zakk?
Right now I just have I have an 8-inch Simrad unit. It's the NSE 8. It has GPS, side scan, structure scan, regular sonar, and then I also have a little Lowrance Elite 4, which is what originally came on the boat when I bought it. And all that is just regular sonar, nothing fancy. And both of them are good units. Like I said, I really don't use them too much as far as locating fish, but they do help a lot for structure and for finding schools of shad, of course. That's the one time when I really use them a lot, is locating bait.
Yeah, they do. They are a godsend for that, and there's other things, and I know a lot of people say, well, they're not going to fish a spot that if they don't mark fish. just because you're not marking fish does not mean there's not fish in that area. And, some people understand that and other people don't. But I have caught some of the bigger fish and never marked them, but I know on that structure them fish are there.
That's exactly right. And, what taught me a lesson was, back when I first started catfishing on a boat, we just had a simple little sonar unit. And a lot of days we would mark fish in a spot, and we would try to fish that spot and not catch anything. And then we would fish another spot that had really nice structure, but we didn't mark much of anything, and we would start catching fish in that spot. So, I definitely learned that just because you mark fish in a spot doesn't necessarily mean you're going to catch them. A lot of times, you might mark fish in deeper water, for example, where I fish in Lake Gaston, and those fish aren't active. They're just sitting there. And then you might go into some shallower water, for example, and not mark much of anything, and you might put out lines and just immediately start catching active fish.
Right, exactly. Greg would like to see your video and wants to know if you have it posted up on YouTube. Now, I know that you do have. Would you give us that link so that he can find it and watch that, because it's very entertaining?
I don't have it off the top of my head, the actual link, but it is on the Catch the Fever YouTube account.
All right. That'll do it. That will do it. We'll get that information, and I'm not sure if I seen it on their thing or if it was under your name, but it is available, and it's very good to watch, and very entertaining. If you guys get a chance to see it, it's well worth taking a look at. Brad Bex would like to know, what bait did you catch them fish on, and was you fishing on the bottom, or was you drifting, or just how did you do it?
I was drifting on the bottom with cut shad, gizzard shad. I can't really say that one bait is better than another overall. I kind of use what I can get that's fresh. As long as it's fresh, I feel like most of the time you're going to do okay. If it's a bait fish that's natural to the body of water you're fishing.
Was it big bait or small bait?
Oh, well, I had big bait out, and surprisingly, both the record fish actually bit on smaller chunks of bait. When I say smaller pieces of bait, I mean 2 or 3 inch chunks of bait, whereas on my other rods I might have a big old gizzard shad head, or a 4 or 5 inch piece of bait. It might have a huge piece of bait the size of my hand.
So when you go out, do you set up? I don't know how many rods you use at a time. We're allowed 3 per person. Most places that we fish now, we'll stagger ours with small pieces and big pieces and stuff to get started, and if the fish are hitting on the larger ones or the smaller ones, then we'll slowly move them over to where they're closer to whatever size is predominantly getting hit. Is that how you go about doing when you're catching your fish?
Yes, that's pretty much exactly how I do it. I always mix it up as much as possible and stagger them out to where I have a nice variety. And if possible, I normally even put out a couple of live baits as well. Blue cats, I know they're not as keyed into live bait as flatheads are per se, but there's a lot of days where I don't get bites on cut bait, and for whatever reason, they'll take a live bait every time, even in the winter time. And particularly on suspended rigs, such as slip bobbers or downlines.
Right. Now, let me get back over to that page. When you're going out there, or how many rods at a time are you allowed to use out there where you're at?
Well, there's no regulation on the number of rods, but of course with drifting and trolling, you're not gonna get out but so many before you have a major headache on your hands. With that being said, generally I'll start with anywhere from 5 to 8 rods. Usually a nice mix. As I said, I'll have them staggered, and I usually have at least 2 slip bobbers out, and I'll let the slip bobbers out much farther than my bottom bouncing rigs, and that helps avoid tangles as well.
Okay. Major Brown would like to know what size hooks that you caught those record fish on, and Adam Winder would like to know what hooks you was using.
I was using the 9/0 Charlie Brown circle hooks from Bottom Dwellers. I use the 9/0 for drifting, and I use the 10/0 when I'm anchored up with really large baits, especially large live baits.
Let me ask you one thing about those. There's two different.
He doesn't know he's froze up. You froze up on us, Chuck. Start again.
There's a number 10 regular Charlie Brown, and there's a number 10 heavy duty. Do you use which one do you use on the number 10, and do you see a big difference in those?
I just use the regular. I don't use the heavy duty, and the reason for that being that I'm using 30-pound monofilament line, so I'm not too worried about bending a hook out or anything like that. Such as if you're using really heavy braid or really heavy mono, I can see the need for using one of those really thick wire hooks. But I offset my hooks a little bit, when I get them. The Charlie Browns are one of the circle hooks that don't come offset. So with that being said, it's easier for me to offset the regular size wire as opposed to the really heavy duty wire.
Yeah, and I've tried both myself. It seems like the heavy duty number 10 being such a big gauge that even on the tooth pallet, it's harder to get it to go all the way through. It seems like them smaller gauge wire that they're so sharp anyway. You don't have any problem setting that hook and getting a good hook up. I was just seeing what your thought was, because I'm gonna stay with the regular 9s and 10s, and myself I prefer those. And every time I've been hung up, they've straightened right out for me. I've been able to bend them back perfectly, and I've caught fish on those same hooks, and they hadn't been a bit. So, they're working out really good. All right, go ahead, Lyle. Sorry for that. I just needed
That's
to
all
know.
right. Anytime, just jump right in there, Chuck. We'll make it happen. Slackline Catter would like to know if you use social media to help you look for fish patterns, or do you strictly go by what's in the history and stick to your waypoints?
Yeah, I don't use social media at all for trying to figure out what the fish are doing. I honestly don't even know too many people that fish for trophy catfish on Lake Gaston either. So I really can't get a whole lot of feedback from other anglers on the lake, except for my guiding partner Zach Zajac, who helps me run the guide business. Me and him do work together, staying on top of the fish. But other than that, it's mostly just from I've got a fish journal basically from previous years to where I keep information, and that just gives me a general idea of where to start, according to the season or water temperature. If I start to get a little bit off track, start to have a little bit of trouble, I can kind of look in that book and say, okay, well, when the water temperature was 50 degrees, last year at this time, the area that I fished, and I can start kind of targeting certain depths or type of structure, and usually kind of key back into them that way.
Them your books that you keep all your previous year's information in, your log. Do you go back and check that and go to those spots that you caught them fish in this time frame and temperature, water temperature, air temperature last year? Do you look at those spots before you ever go to try to find fish?
I don't look at them every time. It's more something I do if I start to have a little bit of a hard time and feel like I'm not really keying in on the pattern. Then I'll really start looking back. I might look at last year, the year before, and try to think about it when I'm at home, when I'm not on the water, try to figure out what I can do different when I get back out there.
Okay, let me ask you something else along those lines. Do you feel like if you are in the same air temperature part of the year and the same water depth and temperature and every all the conditions are pretty much lined up as they were in the past, are those places the same year after year after year?
Well, that's a good question because it's definitely not set in stone. I've learned that even with the same conditions, as far as water temperature and weather and everything, the fish can change from day to day and from year to year, certainly. But it's just something to take into consideration. Basically, if you start keeping a fish journal, so to speak, um, it's not something you should use just you shouldn't base your fishing just off of that, but it's just kind of a reference to look at and keep in mind. But yeah, they definitely change even when the water temperature and conditions are the same one year. The next year they can do something totally different. That's the thing about fishing. You really never know for sure, but all you can do is put the odds in your favor as much as possible.
Do you do the guide service as a full-time job, or do you have another job that you work in conjunction with that?
Right now, I'm taking college classes, so I'm not able to guide myself full time. But I work with my guide partner Zakk. We run the business together, and he does half the week, and I do the other half of the week.
So you're a full-time college student.
Yes, sir. I'm a full-time college student, and then I'm doing the guiding the rest of the week. The later part of the week.
Outstanding, outstanding. That's great. I'm glad. Aaron Wheatley said nothing beats time on the water. I would agree with that. The more time that you can spend on the water, the more successful you'll be. You'll learn stuff, and if you have the time to try new stuff, that's when you try it and figure stuff out that you may or may not have done. If you don't have time to do it, of course you're not going to get it done.
That's exactly right.
What are you majoring in, Zakk? And is fishing have a lot to do with what you've chosen for your major?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm majoring in marine technology, and part of the reason that I chose that as a major was because it has to do with being on the water. For example, I have a class, fishing gear technology. So it's hard to beat that if you're into fishing and whatnot, and being on the water, finding a career or a course of study that kind of goes along with what you love to do and what you want to do in life. Um, it's just hard to beat it.
So
That's
what does your classmates say when you come to school and show them these big fish on your phone? Do they think you're full of crap or what?
It's definitely interesting as far as that goes. All I would say is I'm glad I have some pictures to back it up because
Oh yeah.
that's pretty neat. Yeah, I can't imagine. Of course, it's been a while since I was in school, but in them days you went in and you talked about how fast your car would go in, and nobody know you could go out and catch 50, 60, 80, 100-pound blue cats. In them days, the guys went out fishing. They was looking for 4 or 5 pound channel cats. Nobody knew you could do it. I mean, the only people that caught anything of any size in those days was catching them on trot lines. Hell, there wasn't even nobody using jugs in them days. Oh man. Oh, Brad Durk just got on the chat, and he says it's thank God that he didn't know about catfishing when he was in college, or he never would have graduated.
That's definitely another challenge of having the catfishing addiction is trying to kind of balance out the priorities and keep everything on track.
Well, and that's true with a lot of stuff. But if you're going to school full time and you're guiding the rest of the time, that's got to take into a big part of your life. And it's great that you would spend your free time taking other people's out and sharing your experiences and knowledge of catfishing with them. That's outstanding. It really is.
So I really enjoy doing it. I mean, it's one of those things where if you don't love, what you're doing, then there's no way you're gonna make it. Got
Well,
him.
that's so true, and you get out of college and stuff, and I'm sure that you're going to be qualified for some really outstanding jobs, and you'll probably do that. But from what I'm hearing from you, I fully expect you to continue on the guiding, even though you have a job, and take people out and share your knowledge and experience, and show them what they need to be do to finding these fish for themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I plan to keep doing it. If nothing else, always part time. But it may get to the point where that is my full time career. And if that ends up being the case, I would definitely be, more than happy with that outcome as well.
Oh, sure. Catpool wants to know if you're going to be at the Catfish Conference in Kentucky here next month.
I'm not going to be at that.
Okay. Well, that's too bad. It would be nice to sit down with you and visit with you a little bit. He also would like to know if catching those records has helped your business any at all.
Yeah, it definitely has. It's definitely got the guide business a lot more recognition and whatnot. So it's definitely had a positive effect.
I would have to think that catching two fish of that magnitude in that area was surely made an impact on the local businesses around there, probably coming in and wanting to do some fishing there, probably getting people in there that they never had in that area before.
I would think so. So far, it's hard to judge this time of year. But I think in the spring when things start warming up a little more, a lot more will start happening as far as that goes.
Well, I'm quite sure you're right. I'm quite sure you're right. Well, Zakk, it's been awfully great for you to take your time and spend with Chuck and I on Catfish Weekly this week. I know we've had a big number of people watching the show tonight. I can see the numbers go across my screen and stuff, and I can't thank you enough. And I know Chuck, he's probably got some more questions, and he may not be done, but at this particular time, we're going to give you all the time you need to thank the people that have helped you do what you do, and any sponsors or people you'd like to talk about. Take your time and go ahead and do so.
Okay. Most of all, I just definitely want to thank Catch the Fever again, Big Cat Fever. They've just been really great to me, as you guys were talking about earlier, as far as the payout goes for the state record. They came through on that just as they say they will in their advertising. I have been on pro staff with them for a little while now and started using their medium heavy rods a while back when they first were released, and they definitely have been the best rods I've used. For what I do, I don't think there's any going back to another type of rod. And I believe those rods played a big role in the fish that I landed, having the action that they have and everything. But I just definitely can't thank those guys enough for everything they've done for me and just for what they're doing for the catfishing community in general. I'm trying to help it grow and promote, CPR and the trophy fish and making outstanding products.
Well, one thing that I want to thank you for taking the time and effort to return those fish to the water. People don't understand how important it is to get those breeding size fish back to where they can reproduce. And people will say, oh, that fish weighed 100 pounds. It doesn't breed anymore. Well, that's simply not true. Them fish breed until the day they die. They lay eggs. They fertilize them eggs. It's not like different species. They continually to do that as long as they're alive. So every time that one of those big fish are lost, you lose that whole gene pool, and from that point on, you've lost everything that fish has to offer. So the people that tell you that, they're just full of crapola. But thanks. Yeah, thank you so much for doing that, and it's very important that people do that to breeding size fish, and nobody ever says anything about somebody taking fish home and eating them, because that's why so many of us got started. Everybody likes to take home a fish and eat, but there's no reason to kill them big ones like that. Them's just the guy that says that, man, I'd have cut that baby up and ate it. He might be the next one that gets the honor of catching that fish, and let's see, after knowing that you turned that baby loose, let's just see how he feels about taking that thing out of that gene pool. That's hard to do.
And I mean, the way I look at it, if somebody goes out and puts the time in and work, and and learns how to catch them and everything, and they end up catching a record-sized fish, the same one that I let go. They deserve it just as much as I do or anyone else. And I believe that, taking those fish, if I had kept those fish and killed them, it just would have been a selfish thing to do. And
I agree completely. I agree.
Just as you explained it has a negative effect on the population in general, and then at the same time you're taking away somebody else's opportunity.
Oh, absolutely.
A little kid might go out and catch that fish.
There's nothing greater to think that one day you're having children of your own or grandchildren, and they get to catch an offspring of that fish. Just think about that for a minute.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I don't think a lot of people think of it that way, and they don't really think about the future generations. But it's something people really need to take into consideration.
I agree. Chuck, have you got anything you want to visit with Zakk about yet tonight?
Yeah, I was just going to, give him a quick an opinion. You didn't thank your girlfriend, and that should be something really big you need to get used to doing, because
that's true.
After you get older, especially as much as she, supports you and as much time as you spend away from her on the water, and I see y'all go out and fish together a lot, and if she is the one, your girlfriend, your wife, always should be the first one that you thank. That's always going to be your number one sponsor. She's always going to be your number one fan. So, take it from me, take it from Lyle. That should be every time somebody asks you and gives you an opportunity to give thanks to your sponsors. If it's in a magazine, if it's on TV, if it's on a webinar whatsoever, include her and, tell her how much you appreciate the support that she gives you on doing the things you love to do.
That's exactly
right. Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's definitely, you can't do it without the support of your significant other and, the support of your family in general.
That's very true. Cindy and I fish tournaments together, and you guys might work a relationship out like that, and it'll be the greatest thing that you ever got involved with. You do, I promise you that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Chuck, have you got any closing statements for tonight?
No, I'm good, Lyle. It was great having Zakk on, and I really appreciated this time that he gave us. He's been a social media sensation. He's been on plenty of magazine articles. I've seen him on news, everything else, and I'm glad he gave us the opportunity on covering this story he had, sharing us a lot of the information on catching those really big blue cats. You know, he's just now college age. He's got a big, huge future ahead of him. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely.
he is the future of the sport.
I agree
And,
100%.
everybody his age under him, and the guys older than him need to sit back and see what catfish sporting is all about. And Zakk is a trophy catfish sportsman.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. One more thought here, boys, before we take off. Justin Connor says he is very fortunate. Tabitha has his bait caught and ready when he gets home from work. What's up with that? What is up with that? Justin, you got it, man. That's pretty cool.
Some guys got it all, man.
Yeah, some guys do. I knew a guy years ago when we used to race stock cars that he blowed a motor one night and he come home from work on a Friday afternoon. His wife had a short block ready. All he had to do is put the heads on, slip that baby in. He went to the racetrack and done well. I mean, it didn't blow up or nothing. And here's Justin. Tabitha goes out and catches his fish for bait for him so they can go fishing. You can't beat a deal like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Zakk, thanks again. For Chuck Davison, I'm Lyle Stokes. Thanks for watching Catfish Weekly. Next week, be sure and tune in. We're going to have Mr. Craig Shoemade on the show. We're going to talk about fishing the lakes around central Missouri, the Missouri River, and different things, so it ought to be a great show. See you then.